Today, we're digging into something I've had sitting in my resource library for years. It's called the Essential Lessons. This is what I've learned in more than 20 years of selling travel, and it's what I want every travel advisor to know. We're talking sales fundamentals that most travel advisors are still getting wrong. Inquiries versus comments, why forms are killing your conversions, and that consultations are your actual superpower. And of course, how to handle objections without freezing, like a deer in the headlights. If you've been wondering why you're not closing sales, this is the episode for you. So let's get into it.
This is the Art of Selling Travel Podcast. And here to guide you through it all, your host, Glenda Beagle.
Welcome back to another episode. I'm so excited to have you here. Now, there is a good possibility that somewheres along the line, you've just been invited to join, to listen to the episodes, or somebody said, you got to check this out. And maybe you don't actually know who I am. So let's start there. My name is Glenda. I have sold travel for more than 20 years. And I've also been a business coach going back many years, actually more than a decade. I used to own a brick and mortar agency. I had my own team of outside sales agents. And then I hit kind of this moment of crisis where I'm like, what do I actually want to do? And I loved to coach business owners. And so in 2018, I began the shift out of my agency. And by 2019, that agency I had closed down, and I was coaching businesses to help them with their marketing, to be able to better understand what it takes to run a business. The reality is back then, my thought was, there's a lot of businesses. I come from a smaller community. So think Main Street, if you will, a small town. And there was a lot of business owners who had fallen out of love with their business. And when you fall out of love with your business, sales tend to fall down too, which means it's not very saleable. So my original intent had been to go in to help rehab businesses, almost like HGTV, but for your business. And then that way you're either going to fall back in love with it, or you're going to be able to sell it and have it in a better position for that, that whole love it or list it type thing. That being said, when 2020 hit, I knew exactly where I needed to be. I had a wealth of knowledge. I had sold tens of millions of dollars in travel. I love the industry. And when 2020 hit, I knew that I was needed in the industry. So I made a bit of a pivot to focus all of my coaching energy exclusively on the travel industry. And that is where I am at now. When they talk about needing a niche, I went heavier into the sales side. Obviously, I have tens of millions of dollars in sales to back that up. I also knew that there was a lot of people out there with marketing. That does not mean that I am not a marketing junkie. Heck, when I was in high school, I volunteered, or my internship, if you will, was with the provincial government at a museum in their marketing department. And I can promise you, marketing has come so far since the mid 90s in comparison to what it is today. Back then, I remember going through all the magazines to clip out the articles, to clip out every ad, because that's how we did it back then, is instead of swipe files that you have in your Google Drive or in your whatever, we used to have actual scrapbooks because that became the swipe file. That being said, I have been where you are. I worked for somebody else as an employee. I then transitioned into owning my own agency where I had employees. I also had independent sales, independent contractors who were able to sell remotely and everything else. So I've really and truly seen all the different sides of it. I know what it means to start over from nothing, to build an agency, because when I opened my own agency, it was in a completely different city from where I had been working. And so, yeah. So let's get into it. This is actually a free PDF that we have had. I've had it live for many years. I think actually I originally built it in 2021, and we've just updated a little bit over the years and whatnot. But the actual core principles of what I teach in here is the ones that I had back then. And I know some people are going to be like, aren't you a little bit of a dinosaur? You haven't sold in a few years. Here's the reality. These are sales principles that still work. And I actually kind of laugh as I look back at them because I'm like, damn, I was ahead of the curve on this one because it really and truly is still the things I believe to my core even now. So let's get started. The first one is inquiry versus comments. This one is a big one. I still see it today. A travel advisor posts something on social media, whether it's inside of a Facebook group, whether it's their actual post, and somebody's like, oh my goodness, that's so on my bucket list. And I still see an advisor, saw one yesterday that said, I know, right? You want me to get you a price? And the person, of course, is like, sure, because they have no idea. This is not an actual inquiry. Could it eventually turn into one? Very possibly. That being said, this is not an actual genuine inquiry. And therefore, if the person doesn't respond afterwards, you didn't get ghosted because nobody actually asked you to get them pricing. The next part of it is the one that I really, when I was reading over this PDF, I'm like, oh my goodness, this makes me laugh because I'm actually working on another episode of this and writing out a blog for Vax vacations because I do contribute to them once a month. And it says, put the human connection back in the process. This is from before AI was even a thing that I wrote this. And I believe it to my core that this is one of the number one reasons why travel advisors are struggling today is because they are not putting the human back in it. There is so many automatic systems, automatic booking, automatic blah, 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 that your clients are coming to you because they want a human. So this is tied up to the consultations, not forms, get you bookings. And yeah, there is all sorts of software out there that's like, just put this on your website, let people put it in, and then they'll send you this, and then you send them a quote. And I want to be abundantly clear. For advisors that have more business than they have time to deal with, 100%, this is a potentially viable option for them. If, however, you are an advisor that is saying, oh my heavens, I don't know how I'm going to pay my bills this month. Everybody said this was going to be easy. I'm not getting inquiries. I'm not getting bookings, or I'm only getting 1 or 2 bookings. Hear me when I say you need to do consultations, particularly if you are new. And the reason why I say that is because clients don't know what to put on a form. The form is going to turn many of them off because what is one of the first things most travel advisors put on their form? Tell me your budget. Is it this to this, this to this, or this to this? Your clients immediately go, I have no idea. So a couple of things happen. One, they're going to put in the lowest. Because let's be honest, right now you're coming off like a used car salesman and they don't want to have to pay more than they absolutely have to. So what happened? You've now judged them based on that. You're like, as if anybody can go and do this. The other thing is they're like, I have no idea what this is going to cost. I don't know. Maybe I shouldn't go on this trip. Oh, they're going to think I'm stupid. Never mind. I'm not even going to fill this out. Imagine already making people feel like they don't belong simply because they don't know how to answer an arbitrary thing on a form. The reality is price is irrelevant without the applicable context, which then leads me into don't make it awkward. You've got to do follow-ups. You are not bothering them because they are the ones that reached out to you. That being said, if all they did was fill out a form, that's a whole other thing because that was very passive. They did that in 30 seconds. And then because they did not get an immediate, here's your price, 20 seconds after that, they went on to another company that does a form that they go type, type, type. Here's your answer. And then they're booking online. Because the reality is, if they have to know all of the answers and you're not able to add to it. In fact, actually, I had this conversation with friends of mine the other day, and they said, I don't understand real estate agents. When the market is this hot, why do I need one? Now, my son is a realtor, so I'm like, for so many reasons. And so my cousin was saying that when she was not my cousin, it was a friend of mine. She was saying that when she was helping her aunt sell her property in the States, that realtor came in, did all the staging, did the this, did the that, laid it all out. And so he said, I get that. There's value in that. And yet they don't understand it here. And it's just simply because they haven't been demonstrated the value. Now, in fairness, they also bought their property 30 some years ago and haven't had to buy or sell another such. There's so many things that people don't understand the value. And unfortunately, when you're working through a form, you are that understated value. So again, follow up, but you have to understand that if all they've done is fill out a form, they don't know you. They have no reason to know you. That is where that consultation comes from. That consultation is putting the human back in the process. Because again, when your clients don't understand what it is that they're agreeing to, what it is they're asking for, why it is that they would possibly want to pay more. You and I have both traveled places where we know that if we would have spent an extra $50 a night, the location would have been wildly different. The inclusions would have been different. This would have been different. That would have been different. And we understand that. But your clients who are like, I don't know what else there is going on, so we're just going to make it about money. So in which case, I want the cheapest possible. Because let's be honest, you don't want to pay more. I don't want to pay more. None of us want to pay more than we absolutely have to. So that is what the consultation does. The consultation is going to put context into the conversation. And that is such an important process. Referrals come from relationships. So one, if you have not built up a relationship with your client, they don't know how to refer you. They don't know what to say. They're like, yeah, they made me fill out a form. They processed, they emailed me tickets. Yeah. Somebody be like, isn't that like what you would do with an online, Expedia, hotels.com, whatever those ones are? Yeah, pretty much same thing, except they were slower. You want to make sure that people understand that there is a reason why they would want to do business with you. What is it that you bring to the table? What is it that you add to the conversation? What is the context that you have? Now, the flip to that, and this is why it's under Don't Make It Awkward, having a relationship with your clients, you can have a professional relationship where you can be wildly social if you run into them at the grocery store. I come from a smaller town. We run into people all the time. You can ask them, how's it going? How's this? How was your vacation? All of those sorts of things. What's going on? What's new? You do not have to become their best friend. I know of a realtor who made it her mission that if she was going to work with somebody, you had to become her best friend. That has ultimately become the downfall of her business because she brought people in too tight. And people are like, you're a little crazy. And so that then caused this massive unraveling. It is okay to have a very professional, cordial relationship with people in order to be able to have conversation, be able to smile, be happy when you see them and other such, but not necessarily need to know every intimate detail of their life. It is also important that when you are having those conversations and those consultations with your clients, that you're listening to hear them, not just listening to speak. And so what that means is a lot of times when you're in a sales conversation, or even perhaps you're friends with somebody and you say something and you can already see them purse in their lips because they're like, I got to add something. I got to get that in there. Now, I will also say as an ADHD person, this is something I have had to work hard on. In fact, that's actually one of the reasons why I have a piece of paper. When I do my coaching calls, there is a piece of paper on my desk so that I can take notes, so that I can better slow down to hear what it is that they're saying, so that I can deeply connect with it rather than jumping on the first thing that I hear and then my brain shutting off to everything else. Because if your brain shuts off to everything else, you're going to miss all of the context, because somebody will say, I want to do this, but, and it's everything that they say after the but that is going to be the most powerful for what it is that you need to know, which then brings us into that conversation of objections. And this is why having conversations and consultations is so important, because everything your client says, I want to go to Disneyland, but What's after that but is going to determine whether or not you make the sale. Sure, they can fill out the form. Sure, you can know that what their budget is to go to Disney and everything else. It's that but that they said afterwards that's going to determine whether or not they actually hand you a credit card. See, people have a lot of fear. People have a lot of feeling as though things are expected of them, that they must do this, that they must go through all of these processes, whatever it is. And it's important to understand that that's going to come through for them. And in which case, they need to know that it's okay and that you're listening. What if somebody said to you, I want to go to Universal Studios, but I really don't like movies? If all you heard is, I really want to go to Universal Studios, and you didn't pay any attention to anything after the but, you're missing the plot line here. Because I want to ask you, what would be the thing that you would follow that up with? If you're only listening to speak, odds are good, you probably would have said, oh my goodness, that's so awesome. Yes, let's do it. Yeah, you don't have to worry about the movies. No big deal. A good salesperson that listens to hear would say, wow, that's really interesting. I've never heard that combination before. Can you tell me what it is about Universal that you want to go see? Or why it is that you chose Universal in that case? Because if you don't understand the why, you're not going to understand any of the reasons why they're objecting. There's so many elements to that come along. So make sure that you're listening to hear them, not just listening so you can speak, so you can sound like the smartest person in the room. In fact, that is a huge myth. You do not have to have all of the answers. In fact, it is okay to not have the answers and to say to them, that's really interesting. I want to make sure I'm getting you the most accurate information. So if it's all right with you, I'd like to take this back with me and check with some of the people that I have a really good relationship with so that they're smarter than even I am, or they have the connections that I don't have, or let me talk to my supplier because they've got boots on the ground. However it is that fits into that conversation. And is it all right if I get back to you by the end of today, end of tomorrow? It's okay to say to them, I'm going to need to get back to you on that. Just because somebody else is doing it does not mean that you have to do it. In fact, if it's not authentic to you, I'm going to really encourage you not to do it. Now, the caveat to that, caveat, whatever you want to call it, is that marketing may not be natural to you. It may not be authentic to you, but that was in your role as an employee. You are a business owner. If you were an independent contractor, independent travel advisor, you are a business owner, which means you are responsible for the marketing. Do not automatically outsource it. You need to understand your message, your market, your client. Nobody is going to understand the combination of you and your clients better than you. So while you do not have to do every dancing TikTok, every whatever it is that's out there, you do need to know how to show up as authentically you each and every time at a pace that is consistent with you. I've worked with travel advisors that say, no, it's not authentic to me to be on social media. So yeah, I'm not going to market my business. Okay, great. I'm not saying you have to use social media. What are you going to do? Well, why do I have to market? Because nobody knows you exist. You do have to market a business in order for people to be able to find you. That is a big piece of the puzzle. People have to know you exist in order to be able to buy from you. So while I'm saying you don't have to do what everybody else is doing just because everybody else is doing it, you do still have to show up and be available, be visible, be visibly you in what you do. And when you're saying, that's not me, I also am going to really challenge you. This is when I work one-to-one with clients, this is probably the thing they get challenged on the most. Is it not authentically you? Or are you scared spitless of what somebody else might say about it? What if somebody else sees it? What would they say? And you have to decide which fear is bigger, the fear of failing or the fear of judgment. Because the reality is, and I heard this one a little while ago, and somebody said it the other day, and it caught my attention. And it said, why are you paying attention to somebody else's opinion of you if you would never take their advice? If you would never take the advice of that person, then why does their opinion get to weigh at all? And that one was really powerful for me. Closing it out, we're going to talk about the objections again. I know I kind of dipped. It's one of those things. Objections are inevitable. They are going to happen no matter what. You are in business. They're going to happen. So what I'm going to encourage you to do, make a list of your most common objections. Why? So that you have something to be able to say, so that when you get an objection, it's not this immediate deer in the headlights of, I don't know what to say, because you've already made that list. And anytime you get different objections, write it down. Because when you are prepared, and I'm not talking about having it fully scripted so that you know exactly word for word for word, but at the same time, you're going to have a bit of a run through. At the very least, have the ledge that you can talk of, so that way, when somebody comes to you and says, that's too much, you're not, oh, okay, well, I don't know what to say, I guess you're not going. No, you're going to have a moment where you can pause and say, I understand that the price point might be a little higher than you were looking at. So let's go ahead and have a conversation about what it is you want to give up. What are you willing to compromise on? What are you willing to take off? Do you want to go for less time, a lower quality? What is it you want to give up? See, again, this comes back to you don't have to have all the answers. You don't have to tell them or twist yourself up inside to get a cheaper price. You need to go back to them and get the answers from them. What are they willing to compromise? What do they want to give up? What are they willing to let go of? Michael Vickers said this many years ago, price is never the issue unless it's the issue, in which case it's the only issue, but it's rarely the issue. And yet so often travel advisors, when they come to a price objection, are like, okay, well, yeah, especially when you're taking your own money mindset into this. I would never pay that. Like, who pays that? Oh my God. Can you believe somebody spends that kind of money? And ironically, they might only be talking about $5,000. The next advisor might be talking about $50,000, saying, I can't believe they spend that. And the next one might be at $500,000. I am watching a woman online. Her name is Livy. She is a luxury travel agent. And I think I'm going to do a whole podcast episode just on what I've been watching with her about it. And she has clients that'll drop 5 million without batting an eye. And she just goes with the flow. And yet I talk to travel advisors who are shocked that a client might want to spend $5,000 per person. And maybe you're listening to this and thinking, oh, can you believe that? But what if I said to you, your client wants to spend $500,000 per person? What does that bring up in you? See, price is never the issue. There is always going to be somebody willing to pay it. Somebody somewhere is going to do that. And there is a good possibility that somebody is in fact your client. You're just putting your own thoughts, beliefs, and opinions into that. And in order to overcome objections, consultations every day, twice on the weekend, 100%. Why? Because the consultations is where you're going to hear the but. The consultations is where you're going to hear a client go, yeah, I was thinking that, but you need to hear that. You need to be able to say, you were going to say something there. What was it? The other thing is consultations. If you don't want to bother somebody, consultations takes away the 3,000 back and forth emails. Takes away the, oh, one more thing, because you've had a genuine conversation. It also takes away that uncertainty. When I'm working with clients and they're saying to me, I don't know, I've given them everything they've asked for, I don't know why they're not buying. It's everything that they asked for. And I said, well, what did they say in the consultation? Well, I didn't do a consultation because they were really busy. So I said we would do it by email. Well, how much time have you now both spent avoiding wasting time? Consultations are your superpower to speed things up, to get the context, to be able to create and establish the value of what you bring. And more importantly, to understand what it is they want, but more importantly, what it is they don't want. The wording, the language that comes out in a consultation is by far and away the most powerful that you will ever have in a sales relationship, because your clients are going to say things that you're never going to pick up on a form, that you're not going to get out of an email. It's the way they say it. It's the way they start to say it and stop. It's the things that they say and then tag on afterwards quietly. See, those are the moments that they're holding back in their mind, that they don't want to talk about, that they're nervous about. And in fact, those are the moments that if you haven't established a relationship, those are moments of vulnerability. And those moments of vulnerability are usually where the biggest objections lie. And yet, if you have not established a relationship with your clients, built a level of trust, they are not going to share that with you. And when they don't share that with you, you don't get the sale, because you still don't know what their trigger point is. That's where we're going to leave it for today. I do have this as a PDF. As I mentioned, you can go to the show notes. We're going to link that up. It also comes with a couple of emails that will invite you, or will go a little bit further in depth with a few of these things. Also, too, in there is an invite to join a wait list for our upcoming workshops. We are going to be doing a sales workshop in the fall. If you're listening to this in real time, we have our groups workshop coming up, idea to sold out groups, this July. We would love to have you come and join us. All of that's going to be in the show notes. And until next time, happy selling.